What's up, everyone? Episode 3 of the COVID-19 quarantine Q&A.
Coronavirus!
And today we're going to talk about why Indigenous peoples choose to go to New York over going to Geneva. A little bit about guilt, post-COVID-19 crisis, and a little bit about Indigenous organizations. So let's go.
Can you explain why many indigenous peoples go to the UN in New York and not to Geneva?
I try to explain to them that the UN is bigger than just in New York, or than just the different forum in New York. That there's so many more things that you can do. The misconception that a lot of people have is that because the Permanent Forum is in New York, so that is the most important meeting that we should all go to, which is not true. It is very important to know, like I said before, the mandate, what a Permanent Forum can do or expert mechanism can do. And I think we should not be married to, I go to New York, I go to the Permanent Forum because it's in New York. You know, it's not true. Like, you should definitely look into what do I want to get out of a trip to the UN. Do I want to do something about climate change? Do I want to do something about biodiversity? If you want to go to those things, then the Permanent Forum is a good first entry point. But if you really want to make any progress, if you really want to participate in decision making, then I would recommend you to go to CBD meetings or UNFCCC meetings. You know, it's not, the UN is not just New York and the headquarters in New York. Yes, the PGA is over there. Yes, the Secretary General is there as well. But what are the chances for you to meet those persons? They're very slim. You gotta keep in mind that it is an investment. Your trip to the UN, that you want to get something out of it. So please be very aware of the entire UN system, what it can do, what it cannot do, and where you can invest your trip in, your time into. For me, for example, the way I see the Permanent Forum is a very good entry point for Indigenous peoples to get to know the UN, how it works. So that's why I encourage Indigenous peoples to go to New York for the Permanent Forum. But it is also very important to know what you can do in Geneva, what you can do with the Human Rights Council, expert mechanism, treaty bodies. If you want to go specific, if you're going to want to focus on climate change, you want to focus on oceans, you want to focus on biodiversity. The UN is a very big monster. There's a lot of aspects that you can, or processes that you can engage into. And the Permanent Forum is just one element of it. So I highly recommend you to look beyond the whole romantic idea of I'm going to the UN, so I have to go to New York. No, that's not the case. It's much bigger than that. And so that's at least my thoughts about that.
I feel guilty when I'm away. I'm scared that people think it's all play and no results. Any advice?
Oh, here's the thing with me then, because I had the same problem. I went away, colleagues, friends, and at my part-time job, they were like, well, hey, you travel all around the world. I have an idea of what you do, but that's pretty much it. And I see you post pictures on Instagram and Facebook about food and you taking a run in Central Park or stuff like that. And that's when I realized actually that I should be doing it the other way around. I should be posting stuff about my work, about what I do, about what my thoughts are, and some failures, some mistakes, aha moments. And I think that's how I what led me to developing a podcast and documenting the work and doing Q&As like these, so that people know what you do. And it's very important that they know that it's not all play, that you do it, you travel a lot, you work a lot, and there is, well, the only, at least for me, the only time that I have time to play is in the evenings when, between dinner and going to bed, and it's and the rest of the time I just do the work. So what I would do is, yeah, communicate, and I think it's best to over communicate, just to tell people like what you're doing and why you're doing it, and if people understand, they understand. If they don't understand, then fine, like it's. But don't be afraid of them judging you, because people always judge, and I'm talking about like negative people. They will always find a way to like say something nasty about you. But focus on doing the work. Focus on what you love about the job. Focus on the people you get to meet, the things you get to do, and try to document it. At least that's what that worked for me. And if it works for me, hopefully it works for you. It doesn't have to work for you. But I think that is at least one way to take away that guilt and the fear that other people might think that you're just doing it for, it's all jaunts, all play, no results, and that's and yeah, just look at what I try to share or post. It's all thoughts at work, and yeah, from time to time I post something about play and but which is fine, and food. Like I love to take pictures of food, but who doesn't nowadays? So yeah, if you feel guilty, don't be afraid. Just communicate. I hope that made sense at all.
What are your thoughts about Indigenous organizations led by non-Indigenous individuals?
All right, I think that's a very tricky question in terms of like there's multiple ways to interpret that question. I think what you're trying to get to is, let's unpack that a little bit. You have Indigenous peoples, Indigenous peoples organizations. You have NGOs, non-governmental organizations, and you have NGOs that are focused on Indigenous peoples, for example. So I have those three categories. Only one of them, in my view, are allowed to speak on behalf of their Indigenous peoples, or make decisions on behalf of Indigenous peoples. And that's the first one, the Indigenous Peoples organizations, or Indigenous peoples in general. When it comes to NGOs and NGOs that support Indigenous peoples, I think they're very welcome to help Indigenous peoples out in the movements, in the work, in the projects, and everything else. Fine, that's amazing, and there's a lot of organizations out there that already do that. DOSIP is a good example. IFGIA is a very good example, and there are multiple, a whole host of examples out there that are doing great work, and they also learn that it is good to, as a supportive role, as an ally role, but when it comes to actual decisions that need to be made, actual representing Indigenous peoples, only Indigenous peoples need to be doing that. Like you cannot, as an NGO, represent Indigenous peoples because you have a project running in Brazil or in the Amazon or whatever. Like no, it's about up to the Indigenous peoples themselves. And then I'm talking about the representative institutions, the traditional elders, leaders, etc., to represent Indigenous peoples in processes that affect them. And I work with a lot of non-Indigenous persons that are very supportive, and they're great, and they're amazing, and they know actually when it's time to. They know their role as a supportive role and not as a representative role. So those are my thoughts when it comes to, the balance or the linkage between non-Indigenous organizations that support Indigenous peoples or NGOs and Indigenous peoples organizations and or Indigenous peoples. So yeah, that's a little bit my thought. If you really take the question literally, Indigenous organizations led by non-Indigenous individuals, I think that is a very tricky thing to do. Like how can you as a non-Indigenous person represent a peoples or as I'm talking about peoples and not organizations, but like I'm trying to figure out a Indigenous organization that is not an Indigenous peoples organization. I'll stick with the linkage between Indigenous peoples organizations and Indigenous NGOs and organizations that support Indigenous peoples.
What are you worried about in terms of the post-COVID-19 crisis?
Yeah, I've been asking this question to a lot of people's relatives and colleagues, and basically what I thought is what they think as well, is that history is about to be rewritten in front of our eyes.
Coronavirus!
Before our very eyes. And let me explain a little bit why we see a watered down version emerging in all the countries around the world in regards to rule of law. There's little to no certainty anymore when it comes to human rights or the rights of Indigenous peoples. Laws are being passed in countries that are at odds with environmental with the environment. Legislation that was supposed to fight climate change are being scaled down. What else? We see a full stop on Indigenous peoples and state relationships, almost to the point that a war on tribes and our peoples are emerging, are being is like the inevitable thing that will come out of this. Elders that are very vulnerable. The health responses in Indigenous communities is very low, as in like it's murky at best. What else? I was talking about elders, remote communities, Indigenous people that live in remote areas. How are they able to survive COVID-19? Also, there's a lot of non-Indigenous peoples that go to the communities or remote areas where Indigenous peoples live, for example, in Alaska, and trying to escape COVID-19, and they might be bringing the virus with them. They might contaminate everyone. Or that these people that escape that want to escape the virus, that they go to a remote area and go to the nearest grocery store and take everything so that they can go into like actual lockdown or quarantine, leaving nothing behind for the Indigenous people that live in that area. And things like that are going through my mind, not to mention the post-crisis things that are happening. This is just what's happening right now. You see disaster capitalism emerge or develop, and post-crisis. Look at the agenda, the agenda of Indigenous peoples. At the international level, like all the meetings have been postponed. Either it will create a bottleneck in the tail end of 2020, or 2021 will be cramped with a lot of meetings, causing a lot of overlap. And these peoples are already spread thin. So how are we going to be able to participate in all those meetings while not allowing things to slip through the cracks? So those are just like briefly things that are on my mind. Luckily, I can talk to a lot of friends, relations, colleagues about this and try to strategize something so that once this whole quarantine lockdown is lifted and that we can travel again, and that we as a movement can come out stronger, that we're not lockdown doesn't mean that you can sit still and just hang back and wait for everything to pass by. You as a movement, like you have to prepare for whatever comes out of it. Whenever we're whenever this whole pandemic is beyond us, making sure that we come out of it stronger and then we went into this, and not weaker than we went into this whole lockdown thing. So those are things, basically my quick thoughts on what I'm thinking about. Not necessarily worried about, but like what I'm thinking about, what's on my mind in this during this COVID-19 crisis. And also, like, how can we as Indigenous peoples all around the world during the crisis help each other in terms of whatever other Indigenous peoples might require. So stuff like that. I know that I cannot do everything that I want to, but at least I can do what I can. What I'm good, well, not that good at, but like what I can do. Those are things that are on my mind and that I talk a lot about. And hopefully we're seeing all around the world, like, biodiversity regenerating itself, and like animals that have been deemed extinct that are returning, and all that. So how can we use this in our narrative, in our conversations post COVID-19, and stop and ensure that whatever we gained in terms of biodiversity and carbon emissions and the drop in carbon emissions, how can we make sure that will not be reversed, like that we can keep this up. So those are a lot of things on my mind, actually. So that's what I'm thinking about when it comes to COVID-19. Anyway, 4 things that I talked about in this episode. If you have any questions or thoughts, do you agree with me? Do you have any other thoughts? Are you going to take me to town? As in, like, you think I'm full of it? Please, comment or send me a message. I love feedback. I appreciate it. I value it. And hopefully I'll get to see you in the next episode. Cheers.